My name's Craig Simpson. I'm part of Mass Peace Action, part of the Racial Justice and Decolonization subgroup for Indigenous rights. And this is our first official webinar. We've had other things, but it's so exciting to have you here. And we try to do educational and action-oriented things around Indigenous issues. And tonight we want to talk about Line 3 in Minnesota, the pipeline put in by Enbridge, one of the largest multinational corporations. And we want to talk really about the resistance to this. And right now, the largest nonviolent direct action since probably Standing Rock or maybe before is going on every day in northern Minnesota. And I hope that we can get some idea about it. I mean, things are happening so quickly, and so there'll be a lot of interesting subtopics, but if you really want to ask a question, put it in the chat. We're going to spend a lot of time talking. We only have an hour, so not much time to get everything in, but I hope you can look at us, and this is a beginning discussion. And my vision at first was that it would be a kind of informal discussion about, from the people that have been there. And I was there myself in June for about 12 days and almost a little longer because I did some other things, but so I'm no expert, but I think the three people that we have invited are. So I'd like to introduce them, and they can introduce themselves more, but Sabine von Ehring, Erica Williams Rodriguez, and Nathan Phillips. Okay, I'll get there. So thank you very much. And I think Sabine and Erica can start off and give us some kind of background and what they were involved in.
You can start, Sabine.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Thanks so much for having us all. It's really good to know that there's so much interest in this. I'm Sabine von Mehring. I use she, her pronouns, and I live on unceded Nipmuc land in what's called Wayland in Massachusetts. And I'm a climate protector with 350 Mass, and also teach at Brandeis about climate. But I'm speaking neither for 350 Mass today, or neither nor for Brandeis. And the first slide that we have here is of Germany, because I was born in Germany, so I'm indigenous to Germany, and that slide shows you the before and after of the catastrophic flooding that happened earlier this month. So it's very personal to me. Erica?
Oh, are we going? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that we were going off of that same thing that was last time.
I put it in the chat.
Hold on a second.
But you can just talk. You can just talk.
Yeah. Well, my name is Erica Williams Rodriguez. I was arrested at Line 3 in June with Sabine and others. Craig was there with us, and Nathan, who was on the call tonight, was there with us. And, I sit on Lenni Lenape land right now that is being occupied, and my grandparents were Indigenous from a Taino tribe in Puerto Rico on my mother's side, and on my father's side, they are indigenous to Guyana, which is in South America. I grew up not very aware of my culture. My grandmother was taken with her sisters from Puerto Rico with a group of other indigenous children and raised at a Catholic orphanage, even though they had parents in New York. She spoke another language, either Spanish or an indigenous language that we don't know what it was, because when she would speak her language, they would beat her and her sisters when they tried to communicate with each other. So they lost their language and they were colonized and beaten down. And I am now trying to regain my culture and connect with my cousins, the Anishinaabe people.
Yeah, and as you heard already from Craig, the water protectors in Minnesota are led in part by groups of women and two-spirit people who are, you know, there to protect the water. And one of the leaders is Tara Hauska, who's a co-founder of the GNU Collective. And you know, she's yeah, we should and this is the, you know, just for those who are maybe not aware, the line 3 is being built in northern Minnesota while there are extreme wildfires. And here in Massachusetts, you all remember that we got an alert earlier last week when the wildfires, the smoke from the wildfires had actually reached Massachusetts and was causing trouble for people here to breathe. And so the question is, what is line 3?
So for those who don't know yet, line 3 is a pipeline project by Canadian energy and giant Enbridge to ship tar sands oil from Alberta in Canada into Wisconsin, spanning northern Minnesota, crossing the Leech Lake and Fond du Lac reservations, and violating the 1855, 1854, and 1842 treaty areas.
Mm-hmm. And this is also called the land of 10,000 lakes. And you can see that here. It's an area full of precious and pristine waterways. And this is precisely, I mean, that's sort of striking if you look at this picture, that they would have the nerve to put a pipeline under all these waterways, which are, you know, waterways and wetlands. I mean, this is such sensitive land here, and
beautiful land.
Mm-hmm.
The pipeline is being built through treaty lands of the Anishinaabe and Ojibwe tribes, crossing waterways they have used to grow wild rice for hundreds of years. If completed, line 3 would ship up to 915,000 barrels of tar sands crude oil a day. And if you know about this oil, it is one of the dirtiest fuels on Earth. The total project cost rose to $9.3 billion, and the Minnesota segment is $4 billion.
Yeah, and the climate impacts of this are enormous. So if completed, this pipeline will emit enough or produce enough oil to produce about 170 billion kilograms of carbon dioxide per year, which is equivalent to about 50 coal-fired power plants or 38 million vehicles on our roads. So it is just as bad, if not worse, as KXL. It is a carbon bomb. And you all may remember that President Biden, when he was inaugurated, said, quote, "The cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear." And so it is really very upsetting to us that Biden has been silent on line 3 and has not used the power of his office that he did use for the Keystone XL pipeline to stop this climate atrocity from happening.
Indigenous water protectors and their allies have been fighting against this pipeline project for over 7 years, ever since it was first proposed. While we were there, we met a group of young people who are students and who are living there at the camps, protecting the land and the water and the people there full time. You know, they have, a lot of them have left school and are dedicating their lives to protecting these people and making sure that this pipeline does not go in, because they are just full of climate anxiety and are just horrified that their elders, you know, the old people who are running these companies would destroy the land like this. This pipeline will leak. It is guaranteed it will leak and destroy these waterways.
Yeah, and some of our friends also went out there in May and blockaded a so-called man camp. And you can see here, no more MMIWG 25, is that? So anyway, Erica, explain what it is about the man camp issue.
MMIW is missing and murdered Indigenous women. Wherever there is a pipeline and a man camp that are working these oil fields, there are missing and murdered women and children around. When you put these men into these situations where they're not connected to their families, where they don't have a partner, they seek sex trafficking. And what is happening is that these men are brutalizing these women. They're killing them. They're raping them. There were just recently there, and I will put a link in the chat, there was 2 Enbridge employees arrested in a sex trafficking sting. And these are just the ones who are caught, right? What about all the ones who aren't caught and all these missing women who the government just says we don't know where they are, you know, and there's no real effort to hold Enbridge accountable for what their employees are doing.
Yeah. And so when we got there, we really found a heartbreaking situation. On the one hand, as Erica said, there's these young people who are committed to protecting the water and all the Indigenous folks leading the fight. And then there's the land and the water and the beautiful butterflies and the dragonflies and the waterways that are just so precious. You know, here's the Mississippi where you can jump across almost. It's so tiny, and you know, it's like the baby Mississippi, and they're violating this baby. And if it spills, and it will spill, then you know, so many of us will feel the results. I mean, Enbridge has reported 173 incidents of some kind of violation of environmental issues since 2002. And many more elsewhere. So there's just no question. This is like a motorcycle accident. It's not a question whether it's going to happen. The question is just when it's going to happen. And in fact, some chemicals have already spilled in the process of the drilling.
Just a sec, Sabine.
You can see here the construction and how it's, you know, digging under the water.
Someone's banging on my door.
You can go.
So funny.
So
Could you continue for a sec?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, don't worry. So as Erica mentioned, there have been water protectors have been camping out there since January. I mean, ever since the construction began, and they're beautifully creative, and they're really, you know, they're really committed to protecting the water for all of us. And protecting the Mississippi and the air we breathe. Here you have the grandmothers who stopped line 3. And there were students, and there are other Indigenous folks coming from far and wide. And Erica and I did it to support them. We participated. And the other part that is also not that well known outside of Minnesota. Do you want to pick up from here, Erica?
What slide are you on?
76.
Okay, just a minute. I need to get down there. So the while I'm looking for our text, the so Sabine and I were originally charged with a misdemeanor. 3 misdemeanors, but they have upgraded one of our charges to felony theft. They are, they're, raping and pillaging the land, in my opinion, and charging us with theft. And they're charging us with theft of the truck that we locked ourselves onto.
They don't even say that. They just charge us with felony theft.
With a felony
they don't
theft.
say what we stole. But we are convinced that they are the real felons, that they are the criminals. And
So,
here you
yeah.
see, yeah.
Enbridge has also been providing the local police with $1 million to purchase weapons, and has used these resources to blockade the entrance to private property owned by tribal members and Anishinaabe people.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this week, or actually maybe 2 weeks ago now, Indigenous water protectors, including Tara Hauska and Winona Leduc, filed a lawsuit against the county and the sheriff, the local land commissioner, for, quote, illegally constructing a de facto open air prison, blockading their property. So if you don't know who Winona Leduc is, she is a leader of the resistance out there, one of the leaders, and was arrested herself recently and held in jail for 3 days.
And the judge actually gave them right. The judge
Yes,
actually,
they won that suit, and they now have a restraining order against the Hubbard County Sheriff.
Here's the arrest of the women. And they continue to drill under the water, and people continue to try to get in the way so that they can protect the water under, as you can see, really crazy circumstances, but they are trying their darndest because they know the danger of this construction. So we're hoping that everyone is inspired to go and support the Indigenous water protectors. People need to talk about this. Not enough people know about line 3 and what danger it poses to our climate, to the people in northern Minnesota, to the Indigenous folks there.
Yeah,
so
we
you
hope,
can do stuff.
Yeah, we hope you guys are moved to support them by first off going to Minnesota, right? We have to we all have personal limitations, right? But these people who have been, genocide has been committed against them, and they have been brutalized and for hundreds, for generations now. Are we going to allow this to continue? Are we going to allow the government to continue to victimize these people, or are we going to put our bodies in the way and say, no, this cannot go on. This has to stop now. We hope they are calling you. They want people, white people, all kinds of people to come there and help them and protect them. And if you can't go, we hope that you can donate funds for to help bail these people out of jail when they do get arrested, for transportation costs for people who can go, for food and supplies that they need at the camps. We hope that, you know, by hearing our stories, we will inspire you to take action.
Thank you. And now we'll hand it over to Nathan because there are more Massachusetts connections involved.
Yes, thank you, Sabina and Erica. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So I want to just say hello to you from Potwin land here in California on the banks of the Sacramento River. And although I am out here in California, I do call Massachusetts land my home. And I want to just share with you, to underscore what Erica and Sabina finished off with, is that a real important thing that you can do if your circumstances allow is to go to northern Minnesota and stand in support of the Indigenous leadership there to stop Line 3. But if you are not able to go there, there are things you can do wherever you are. You can bird dog Joe Biden wherever he shows up and tell him stop Line 3 and stop your silence about Line 3. You can go to financial institutions that are propping up Line 3, like Chase Bank or Bank of America, and so many financial institutions, and say, stop the money pipeline, do cut off the funding for this really unjust project. And I want to just give my example of being in Massachusetts and Greater Boston and talk about how the people there knew a little bit about the injustice of Enbridge. They felt it themselves. They felt it in the Boston community of West Roxbury, where Enbridge, which was called Spectra at the time, slammed through what was called the West Roxbury lateral pipeline, a very high gas transmission pipeline through a dense neighborhood of Boston. No safety plan to this day exists for that project. The corruption was jaw-dropping. They hired their own consultant to do the environmental impact assessment for that project, and the state of Massachusetts basically said okay, and the federal government said sure, why not? So we do have to stop this when we see that our local, state, and federal governments are not really doing enough or even anything. It's up to us to say, no, we have to stop these things. The Weymouth Compressor Station, about 10 miles south of Boston, was kind of the latest Enbridge travesty to be visited upon Massachusetts. And that is a 7,700 horsepower gas compressor, which is built to vent raw fracked gas right into the neighborhood with all of the carcinogens, neurotoxins that are in that gas, along with the methane, the largest constituent, which is a greenhouse gas on steroids, a very, very powerful climate damager. So when we here in Massachusetts heard about Line 3 and how it was ramping up after COVID, it didn't take any convincing to know, oh, Enbridge is involved? Yeah, this can't be a good project. And so what we have done is to stand in solidarity. There is a headquarters in Waltham, Massachusetts of Enbridge. We had a 26-hour sit-in with 3 arrests. Those charges were dropped, but I just want to tell you that a couple of weeks later, a few friends showed up again to those headquarters because the charges were dropped. There were no conditions on the charges. And we basically said, hey, we're here again. And 4 police cars showed up for 3 peaceful people standing outside of the Waltham Enbridge headquarters. So they are actually very sensitive. I call it frightened of the public spotlight that's put on them. So let's just ramp that spotlight up on Enbridge. We need to end Enbridge. They need to go away. They need to stop their operations, and it's up to us to do that. So I'll have some concluding comments, but just right now, there are absolutely things you can be involved in to stop Line 3 in solidarity wherever you are. So I'll hand it back over to, I guess, Craig. Or whoever's next.
You're muted, Craig.
Okay, I'm always muted. Okay, so thank you very much. This was very interesting and really enlightening. And so earlier I forgot to do the land acknowledgement. So I want to do just a brief one. Massachusetts Peace Action respectfully acknowledges that we gather here tonight on the unceded territories of the Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Nipmuc tribes with the Wabanaki Confederation, the Mohegan, the Nassau, the Narragansett, Pequot, and many others in the general area. And we have, they have stewarded this land for hundreds of generations. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide, forced removal from this territory, and we respect the diverse Indigenous people still connected to this land, which we gather here tonight. We advocate eliminating Native school mascots, changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and supporting Native curriculum in all schools in the Commonwealth. We support land back and for reparations and equal justice and environmental justice. And anyway, so there. So now is the time for questions. We would like to hear what your questions are, but I think one of the chief things is that we talk maybe about your experience there, what things inspired you, perhaps what the camps are exactly, and that sort of thing. So any of you are welcome to respond to that. We'll start with those.
Well, I wonder if maybe I know there's a bunch of people on the call who actually have also been to Minnesota. Maybe they want to chime in because we may have left out something that was really important to them. I just thought that it might be fun to hear a few more voices. I saw Kathy. Maybe she's willing to talk. I mean, we can answer the questions, but I thought that might be, yeah, there she is. Are you driving? Oh, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
It does look like Kathy is driving, so maybe we shouldn't press her too hard.
No, she's on the passenger side, unless she's in Britain.
Oh.
But she is on mute. While we wait for Kathy, I just want to say that if anyone wants to do a standout at a Bank of America or TD or Chase or any bank of the banks that support Enbridge within 350 Mass, the Climate Courage Direct Action Group is organizing standouts. So get in touch with Alex. I put his email in the chat if you want to do one of those.
And I am planning another trip to Line 3. If anybody would like to go to Line 3 with us, you can email me. I'm putting my email in the chat now. But the camps, when we went, we were only at the training camp where they train. I was only at the training camp where they train people to deal with actions, and it was very impressive how well organized they were and how committed they were. But I cannot speak to the other camps because I have not been there.
I'll just add that it was so fascinating because Erica and I rented a car and drove up to the Camp Namewag together. And I learned from Erica about her involvement in intentional communities of a variety of kinds. And then we ended up in Camp Namewag, which was the most wonderful intentional community with shared agreements and shared values led by women and Two-Spirit Indigenous leaders. And it really embodied and exemplified the intentional communities that we need to have to survive and to thrive through the climate crisis. So it was an amazing experience to be there with those people.
Yeah, now Kathy is unmuted.
Thank you. I am a passenger, so that's good. I'm calling from Maine, having just come from an event.
Oh, you are breaking up, Kathy.
In Bangor by the Penobscot River. All right.
Yeah, you're in Maine?
We just were at an event of the Wabanaki people in keeping with trying to not reclaim their ownership, but simply assert their protection for the Penobscot River. And one of the things that was very interesting was that in the Maine Constitution, there were several treaties with the Wabanaki people that were inscribed in the Maine Constitution. And then in the Native Land Settlement Act, which remained there until all of a sudden Canada and Maine entered an agreement on the behalf of Enbridge to put a pipeline through the state of Maine. And that then ended up abridging the treaty and the native rights of Wabanaki people. So it was just to be sitting there next to this beautiful sacred Penobscot River and have Enbridge rear its ugly head again only reinforces what Erica, you and Sabine and Greg and Nathan were saying. And I think, you know, the only other thing, you've covered it beautifully, about being at Line 3 was that opportunity, in addition to being at the GNU camp, to visit the headwaters of the Mississippi and to be in the presence.
We're losing you.
The people, as they said today, sovereignty is just true. That sovereignty is real and in perpetuity.
Yeah.
It's just that it's been abridged by others. Sovereignty is another way of reestablishing all of our kinship to the waters and to the rivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one question in the chat, why Biden hasn't said anything. Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, I'm not so sure how true this is, but someone just told me that there is a member of his cabinet, I'm not sure who, maybe you'd like to do some more research about this, guys, that has $20 million in Enbridge stock. So that is likely the reason, if it is true, why he has not said anything.
Yeah, he may have made a deal with Trudeau from Canada saying we're cutting KXL, but we're allowing line 3. Whatever it is, it makes no sense in view of the catastrophic climate impacts that we're experiencing worldwide. I mean, if anyone pays any attention, it's in the news every single day now. There's a catastrophic extreme weather event somewhere. And, you know, this is not temporary. This is only the beginning. And to build a tar sands pipeline at this point is suicidal, frankly.
Well, we could move on to some other questions. There's one about what is the police and court response to the nonviolent direct action?
Well, if you want to hear a little bit about when I was arrested, you know, I was locked onto the truck and was told by the police that they were going to burn my face with while they sawed me out, and said they did not have anything to cover my face while they sawed me, and that I would be burned, which is why I did unlock. And when we entered into the jail, you know, they were not kind. You know, when I left, they gave me my clothes back soaking wet, drenched in water. And I was told, I asked what happened to my clothing, and they, you know, they smirked and said, "Oh, I guess a bottle of water fell all over your clothes." You know, they arrested along with Sabine and I, 30 people, 30 or more people who were standing in a public easement, not trespassing whatsoever, just bearing witness to what we were doing. They may have been chanting some slogans, but they may have been holding some signs. But, you know, they were on the public easement. And, you know, the police are really the right hand of Enbridge. I consider them at this point. You know, they are protecting them, and Enbridge is funding them. So I don't understand how that is allowed, but you know, they are paying over $1 million for new weapons for Hubbard County Police Department.
I should say also, they're stopping cars in little towns like Park Rapids for little, they pulled us over for something like dust on the license plate or some other, you know, insignificant things. So, you know, and everywhere police are standing by the camps, watching with binoculars and other. Nathan, do you have anything to say about that?
You know, just I think Erica captured it well. They're suppressing and violating basic civil liberties, being paid by, you know, Enbridge Corporation from Canada. It's really, really, you know, if you think that the U.S. Constitution has any value, you should be outraged. It doesn't matter what political persuasion, party, whatever. They are suppressing free political speech. It's as clear as that. And it's very repressive. So everything Erica said, I absolutely agree.
Okay, there was a question about how do you think, how do water protectors envision winning this fight? A little complicated.
I think, you know, the only way to stop line 3 is to put public pressure onto what they are doing. You know, we need thousands of people to go out to Minnesota, as they did to Standing Rock, and unite with the Anishinaabe people and, you know, scream loudly. This is the only way that it's going to get stopped. If people don't go there and en masse, then I think it will continue. I think that is the way to stop it, is mobilizing large groups of people to go out there. And that is what the Anishinaabe people want.
I know there's a lot of people in our Boston area and throughout the country that are trying to pull people in. I heard one of the latest people, there are like 40 people might be going out in August and November. And Erica also is about to bring a bunch of people out. So maybe you could talk about how, or if anybody else wants to jump in, how you go, how do you organize a group of people to go?
Well, you have to convince people that to get arrested, which is sometimes a hard sell. But when you realize that, when you make them realize that, you know, our waterways are going to be poisoned and the effects that Line 3 will have, I think that people open their hearts and they are convinced that, you know, this is the last pipeline in the United States and through Canada. I mean, why are we continuing with this? We have ended all the others, and ecological disaster is going to occur. And you know, you have to. People also don't. A lot of people don't have money to go out there, so you have to raise funds in order to pay for people's transportation costs. I'm going to put it in the chat, a link to basically a guide about how to get to Line 3 and what you need to do, put out by the tribe there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sabine.
No, I just wanted to say, we have to do everything. We have to keep pushing everywhere. But what I'm worried about is that too many people are blind to the reality of the urgency of the crisis. And they don't realize that we are speeding towards an abyss and we need to pull the emergency brake. That's basically what going to Line 3 is about, pulling the emergency brake, because otherwise we're faced with more wildfires, more flooding, more extreme storms, more pandemics, the whole thing just times 10. So I think it's really important that more people understand that this is the moment to say, no, enough is enough. We cannot build one single fossil fuel pipeline anymore. It's too dangerous.
And there was something in the chat about money for bail or legal expenses. There is always a need for this. Individuals sometimes have to take up their own payment of lawyers. There's some groups, some of the affinity groups are raising their own money. And there is a bail fund, which is low on money and legal expenses. So there's always a need for money. And part of this is handled by Honor the Earth, which is Winona LaDuke's organization, and some of the other things. So hopefully we'll get some of that stuff in the chat. But there was a question about the importance of raising legal funds. So, okay. Anybody see a good question to answer? I'd like to say that one of the things is there's all kind of creative actions, and some have been taken by people here. There's a famous, if you go on YouTube, there's a famous in the middle of winter piano action on Line 3. And where they were playing, they were locked to piano and blocking a thing. Then there were people blocking man camps. There were people standing in the river this week watching a pump because they've been not allowed to pump out of the streams and rivers and lakes. And so some people went into the river itself by the pump and just watched to make sure that they didn't do this. So there's always creative action. There was a boat that locked down and blocked the street. And there's always something going on every day. It seems like.
Any more questions people have?
Yeah.
If you have questions, I think people can unmute, no, if they have questions.
Maybe we could see the whole audience, but we can't quite.
I think
We only have like 10 minutes left, so what would people, oh, here's Kathy's saying there's a group going September 6th to 15th. So there's some in August, some in September.
yeah.
A lot of people are returning.
I want to also emphasize what Aravinda put in the chat, namely that you don't need to risk arrest to be a water protector. There's a lot of roles that, you know, you can wash dishes, you can watch children, you can help cook, you can help clean, you can help with jail support, you can, you know, be an advisor for people who are distressed. I mean, there's so much that's needed. Everything is needed, so.
Yeah, there's lots of things that you can do to support while you're there. You know, some people acted as jail support and stood outside the jails that we were in overnight, and you know, making sure that you know, bearing witness and making sure we weren't taken out a back door somewhere. You know, Black and brown people and also white people die and in jail all the time and go missing all the time. So you can stand outside the jail while the people who are getting arrested are inside, and be there for them when they get out, to provide water. And they came with cupcakes when we got out. Yeah, no, it was incredible to see the amount of support that was standing outside when I was released. I felt really supported, and I felt really like I was part of something really big.
Yeah, and the support roles are just as important as getting arrested. I mean, you know, when our friend Paul spent the whole night outside the jail, it just, you know, it just is, you realize that these are people you can trust, and it's really important to build this kind of community. Like Nathan said, you know, we need to build community. That is really critical at this time. And we need to stand up, especially for those who are at the front lines and are facing the worst on a daily basis. And these Indigenous people, they have been there. They have been fighting for 7 years against this pipeline. They've tried everything.
It is 60% built now. Is that right, Sabine?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So I'll throw out a question. This is Cole. What is the legal framework? If President Biden were to decide to stop this pipeline, what agency would do it? What regulation or what process? You know, where are the pressure
my
points
understanding, the people that have been talking to the Indigenous folks up there are the Army Corps of Engineers. I think they are the ones that are the closest to the decision making.
There's a certain person who, his name is Jamie something. I'm going to put it in I'm going to Google it and put it in the chat right now. You can call his office and ask him to, it is his responsibility. He's the one who was supposed to call for environmental review. So you can call his office and write to him directly.
There's, this is Claire from Peace Action. I also noticed there's a question in the chat. We're not allowed to talk to you, but I did ask, how many of there are you currently on the site? How many folks are currently on
I have
site?
no idea. I have no idea. I just watched the the information coming out, so I always just see when actions happen, but I have no idea.
Yeah, there are camps all up and down the 330 miles. There are several camps, so I don't know. From week to week, it varies. I think August 18th, they are planning something, a large gathering, and a lot of people will be there. But I think people come and stay for a certain time. Sometimes, you know, at the I think the week before we were there was a gathering and there were thousands of people, and they come and they go home. But there are a committed group of people who live at the camps and do not leave. But I can't say a number.
There's about
Someone asked about DC, and there at least is something possibly happening August 23rd in Washington, DC. I don't know, Sabina or Eric or Nathan, if you know more about it. And also some days of action in DC in October.
Yeah, I know that there are some conversations. My understanding is though that obviously for obvious reasons after January 6th, the DC is a really sensitive area, and people are also worried that the Trump supporters are still planning to stage another event in August. And so I think my understanding is that the focus is still mainly on Minnesota, not DC, because there's just too much else going on in DC.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know they were staging another.
There was an action earlier in July where they blocked the White House driveway with kayaks. And
I think that was Sunrise, right?
I'm not sure, possibly. Well, here we are with about 3 minutes left. I thought, thank you for everybody that came. I'm going to go through. We hope that in the near future, we'll have more webinars about Line 3, about, you know, where the money comes from, the insurance companies and the banks. We'd like to find more about what's going on. Every day it's different. There's, as they said, there's arrests. It's not like Standing Rock where there was a huge amount of people. Here there's, and one river at Standing Rock. Here is different. There's lots of rivers. There's small actions of 3 people, 2 people, like here, and larger ones. So you kind of have to, you don't always see it on the front page, but if you follow the streams from Honor the Earth and the GNU Collective, I think you can keep up on a lot of this. It's pretty outstanding. Some people just yesterday climbed a fence. I think there were 20 people that got arrested. So it looked like the old ladders from the nuclear invasions of nuclear plants in the 70s. So that was nice to see those ladders out there again.
And you can keep
Why don't we go through?
I'm just going to say that I put the Facebook page for the GNU Collective, and they do daily updates about the actions that are occurring.
So why don't we start with Nathan and then Erica and then Sabine about kind of a summary of what you think tonight or what we should do.
Well, my concluding comment really is the lesson from another project called the Brayton Point coal-fired plant. And on one level, it sounds like it doesn't have much to do with it except for fossil fuels. But I just want to point out that they sunk $600 million into that coal-fired plant in southern Massachusetts. 2 years later, they decommissioned the plant, and within another 4 years, they shut the whole thing down and demolished it. So there's never a point in any of these fossil fuel projects at which you should just say, okay, we give up. I don't care if the line 3 is 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, 95%. We're not going away, and we're not going to go away until that pipeline is shut down altogether and all fossil fuels are ended for all time. So let's just stick together and keep the fight up. That's my concluding comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Nathan said. The KXL, if there is a nice article somewhere online where they showed how many times it was said that KXL was a done deal and that there was nothing that could stop it, again and again and again and again, and it's gone. And that is exactly what's going to happen with all these pipeline projects, because fossil fuels are a stranded asset. No one can make the money back that they're investing in it. That's why we need to stop the money pipeline. And that's why everyone needs to talk about this, go out there and make sure, talk to at least 3 people tonight about it that don't know yet. At least, maybe 30.
Yes, I urge you all to talk to your neighbors, talk to everyone you can about the atrocities that are going on against the land and the people. All I can say is that there have been hundreds of years of crimes committed against the Indigenous people of this land, and we cannot allow this to continue. This is just, it's ridiculous. It's tragic, and it cannot be allowed to go on by any means necessary. Like Nathan said, even if it's 80 to 90% done, we still have to keep going out there and keep putting pressure on the Biden administration to stop this pipeline. The tragedy of the women that are being murdered and the children that are going missing, surrounded oil fields and man camps, this is colonization all over again. It has to stop. And I thank you all for caring enough to sit here and listen to us. And I hope that you take action by talking to people and sending money or going out there yourselves or encouraging a group to go out there.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. I just love you guys more and more every day. So thank you all for showing up for this. Mass Peace Action does a lot of webinars every day, practically, on a lot of subjects like the abolition of jails and women's jail here. So I hope Cole can give a little thing about that. So thank you for all coming. And Cole, do you want to give it?
Yeah, I can't spotlight myself, so if somebody else can do it, they may see me better, but I'll just be very brief. Mass Peace Action is a multi-issue peace organization. We're the largest peace organization in the Commonwealth, we believe. We have 1,200 dues-paying members and about 17,000 online subscribers. We are the state affiliate of Peace Action, which is a national peace network. We are volunteer run. We have working groups on nuclear disarmament, on Palestine, on Middle East wars, on Latin America, on no Cold War with China. on peace and climate, on racial justice. Within our racial justice group, we have a Indigenous rights subgroup that Craig is the chair of. And then our peace and climate group members are also here tonight, Rosalie and some of the others. So we welcome you to join us. MassPeaceAction.org is our website. And we're heading into Hiroshima Nagasaki week. So a lot of our events in the next week will observe the 76th anniversary of the US nuclear attacks on those cities in 1945, which we have still not apologized for. And we will be calling for no first use of nuclear weapons. We want Biden to adopt that policy and then to move towards universal nuclear disarmament. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate your attention, and join one of our groups and help put your shoulder to the wheel, or join one of the other great groups represented here tonight, like 350 Mass and others. Thank you all for coming.